Hello there. In this video, we're going to redraw this pencil penguin. Okay, over the top, using shapes and lines, using Illustrator. We'll turn them off and yeah, short little squat penguin. Look at how happy he is. Alright, let's get started. Alright, to get started, what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our rectangle tool is over here in my toolbar. If you can't see the rectangle tool, it might be that if you click and hold this kind of where this option might be, it might be set to something like the ellipse tool. And to change that back to the rectangle tool, all you do is click, hold, 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 until these options appear, and then just click on the rectangle tool. Also, to get started, just make sure you're on your layers panel, and make sure you're on layer 1. In your properties panel, I want to make sure we're gonna change our fill and stroke. The fill is the center color of our rectangle, and the stroke is the line around the outside. So, what you do is you click on this first little icon. Doesn't matter what color it is currently. Pick a random color and change it in a second, but I just wanted you to get used to it. Then you can click back on this icon to close it back up. And then the stroke. Click on this, and just make sure it's set to black. Then you don't have to click back on this. You can just click anywhere and it closes back down. And I want to make sure that the stroke is set to 1 point. Okay, it's just a nice thin line that goes around the outside. So, let's draw a random rectangle. Don't worry if it doesn't kind of line up. We're gonna use it for the body of our penguin. So, you can see the fill is the center color, and the stroke is the line around the outside. What you might see is kind of like a faint blue line or red line, depending on your computer. But it just means it's got selected. So, if we go back black arrow, this is your kind of safety tool. Always go back to your black arrow if you're not too sure what to do. You got all this selection. Just go back to the black arrow. It's the one you're gonna use the most. And what you can do is click in the background here. So, L just clicked once, and it deselected our rectangle. You can see the stroker on the outside a lot clearer. So, it just goes blue when we have it selected. So, what I like to do is, I like to keep the black line but not the fill. To do it, you must have it selected. So black arrow, click it in the middle, anywhere, and over here, click on fill. And to have none. See this little red line here? If you hover above it, it tells you. But that means I want nothing in there. Please. And I'm just gonna click in the background to close that little fill panel. Great. So, I've got a line around the outside but no fill. And what you'll notice is it's a little bit different to select. So, I click in the background now. What happens is if I try to click the center, you can see it just doesn't work like it did when it was filled with green. Because there is no center now. So, if I want to select this rectangle now, I must click the edge one's black arrow. Click the edge and it should be selected. Now what I'd like to do is use these white squares. Okay, I just want you to resize it. Okay, so that it kind of matches the edges of our little penguin here. Alright. Not very exciting. Let's get into the slightly more exciting when we start looking at the corners. So black arrow. Make sure the edge of it's selected. You see these little targets in the corners. These are called corner options. And all they do is click, hold, and drag it with your mouse. Just drag it towards the center of the rectangle. So, it's making all hers knots around it. Okay, so that's kind of what I want. It's got the top and not the bottom. Okay, so, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this thing called edit. We're gonna use undo. It just goes back one step. Okay, undo it. Undo what you did. And it keeps going back. You can keep hitting undo right back to the beginning of the document while you can also redo it. Now, I'm gonna use the shortcuts throughout this course, because it's a common thing to do. Go to undo, And on my Mac, it's Command plus Z. On a PC it should be Ctrl. And we can just go the long way. It's fine. What I'd like to do is I would like to have just one of the corners selected. So, look at this little icon here. Take note of the color. I'll click it once. You can see it's kind of changed. It's inverted. So, it's kind of selected when the other ones are not. What I mean by that is if you click and drag that one now. Okay. So, what I'd like to do is go to Edit Undo. Edit Undo again. So, it's back to being a square. And I'm gonna show you how to click both. So, you click the first one. Like we did before. Just click it once with a black arrow. But if you hold your Shift key down on your keyboard, the Shift key is gonna play a big part in Illustrator. Okay? So, hold down Shift. Click on the second one. And it means that I can select more than one at a time. So, these at the bottom aren't selected. These guys are at the top. If I click one of them, click hold. Drag it. They both come off the right. Now I know they match. And a last minute change to my design. I'm gonna click this bottom one once. And just tuck it up. I want it to have a little penguin belly. He was a bit stumpy before. He's still stumpy. But anyway, you don't have to follow exactly. So, we learned what fill and stroke are. Stroke is around the outside. Fill is in the middle. And we looked at these corner options. Let's start building some other parts. Let's draw the circle for his kind of eye there. So, I click. Hold. Keep holding down your mouse. And then release this ellipse tool. So, with the ellipse tool, what we're gonna do is click and drag over here. And what you'll notice is, I can click and drag any sort of size. So that's fine. Cut any sort of wheat size. Gonna undo it a few times. What I'd like to do is I want it to be a perfect circle. Okay. Shift is a really kind of usable tool. So, if I start dragging out, if I hold on to the Shift key while I'm doing it, you can see it locks in the height and width. And that's true with rectangles or stars, polygons, circles. Okay. So, I'm gonna get it to roughly the right size. I'm gonna grab my black arrow. I'm gonna click the edge. Or if you can see this dot here, grab the dot. Okay. That will center. If you got it the wrong size. Okay. Say it's just still too big. And you try to line it up and you're like, it's kind of close. But what you can do is you can resize it. Just like we did before is that I can grab any of these little guys in the corner. The trouble with resizing it this way is, you can see I'm kind of distorting the shape. So, what I want to do is, before I do it, so, I've undone it a couple of times, is if I hold the Shift key and grab any of the corners. Doesn't matter which corner it is. Okay. It will lock the height and width like we did when we created the circle. Okay. So, holding Shift just kind of locks the height and width until I get to the right size, and my circle is not perfect. Okay. So don't worry too much about it. Another thing you can do here is if you're finding that you're trying to line it out and it's like jumping all around. Okay. Get it close where you want it and then with your keyboard. Start with my black arrow. Look down on the keyboard. You've got your up, down and left, right. Your cases. I'm just using my case hierarchies just to kind of tap it around a little bit. Okay. A little bit left. A little bit up. That often can be a nicer way to just kind of do fine adjustment in Illustrator. Alright. Let's do this little upside down the curve and makes him the happy content penguin. Anybody seen Pengu? Anyway. He's my inspiration for this one. So, what we want to do is I could draw a curve. There are lots of ways of doing curves. This is a really easy way. though, is if you click and hold down. So, hold down the line segment tool. There's octal. Okay. So, with the octal, just draw anywhere out here. Doesn't really matter too much which way it goes because we can rotate it. So do it so it's kind of a nice curve ash. What I'd like to do is go back to my black arrow. Remember, this is our default go back to its tool. And it does so many things. We use it to resize the circle and go. We can also use it to rotate. Now, what we need to do is, we need to zoom in a little bit. So, who remembers what the shortcut was? You remember, right? It's Command plus on a Mac, or Control plus on a PC. So, let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to show you why in a second. And to rotate this thing, we need to be in a kind of special zone. So, when we're resizing it before remembering we held Shift, and we drag this up and down to make it kind of bigger and smaller, the rotation is very close. So, clicking in the corner and dragging resizes it, but just as we figure out. And then this kind of like. So too close. No. Perfect. Too far. Perfect. This is kind of like every corner has this kind of like rotation zone in it. You wiggle with your mouse around and hopefully find it. You're looking for that kind of bent arrow. And if you click hold and drag there, just click hold. Drag your mouse. It'll stop moving it around. Okay. And just kind of find it again. Drag it around and so it's kind of a curve that you could use for an eye. Now, I want to move down a little bit. I could use these little sliders. They're fine. What's the shortcut? You remember. Spacebar, click, hold, and drag. Okay. And mine's way too big. So, I'm holding Shift. Just kind of rotating it around a bit. Don't worry if it's not right. Perfect curve. We're gonna show you different ways of doing it in a second, but that's close enough. Drag it down in the corner using me arrow keys just to line it up perfectly. So, to join nice, good looking curves, you can use the castle. You can rotate it by that little special area. Kind of just outside the scaling part. Just out a bit further. That's rotation. Next thing. We'll look at it. We'll look at the stroke. This stroke. If I click off in the background, it's thin. I want to kind of be nice and thick on the inside here, because it's a bit more of a design feature. So, I'm gonna select once with a black arrow. And over here. Okay. Where it says stroke, I'm going to use this little up arrow. You can drop this down and pick one. Or you can just use the up arrow. Just a click and pick a size. I'm gonna pick 4 points. For no good reason. Just looks thick enough. And that looks fine. I'm gonna click off in the background. And I've got this kind of rainbow kind of shaped thing. What I'd like it to do is I'm gonna eventually round all these corners. Just the thing I'm going for. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a little trick. You click on the stroke here. We're gonna look at what's capping is the end here. Called capping. Can you see that it's a straight line? I would like it to be like a little bulbous end. Okay. So, I'm gonna click on it once. Over here. Our stroke. We don't have many options. Right? We have color and we have the size of it. But if you click on the word stroke, there are all sorts of nerdy stuff in there. Okay. So, what we're gonna do in this case is, it's called capping. The unfortunately named butt cap. And then there's a second one, the round cap. Click on that. You'll keep straight face. Right? Okay. The second one, round cap, is kind of what we want. Right? It's kind of this nice, gentler end on it. Okay. This one here, the last one. I don't use a projecting cap. I kind of just, the butt cop. There's a projecting cap. You can kind of see what it does. It puts it like a square on the outside. I can use the round cap. That can really help you later when you're working with Illustrator. You've got some really like ugly edges or ends of strokes. Just switching into a rounded cap would like to finish them off nicely. We'll look at stroke a little bit more in another video. But that's it for now. Let's click off in the background. Click off happy, smiley, content penguin. Alright, next up, we'll do some triangles. So, I wanna do the beak. I wanna do the flipper. Is it its wing? I don't know. Penguins. And his tail. So, they're all kind of triangles with rounded edges. So, to do a triangle, you hold down the ellipse tool, the rectangle tool, and you gotta move to this one called the polygon tool. So, a triangle is essentially a polygon. Just a three-sided one. By default, you're gonna get a pentagon. I don't know. But I'm gonna delete it using my delete key on my keyboard. What I wanna do is just click once instead of dragging it out. And it gives you the polygon options. So, I've got the polygon tool selected. And I just click once on my screen. It gives you some options before you start drawing. And I'm gonna pick 3 sides. Please, not gonna worry about the radius for the moment. I'm gonna resize it once I'm done. So, 3 sides. Click OK and I get this kind of giant triangle. So first up, let's resize it and rotate it. So, I'm gonna use my black arrow. Make sure it's selected by clicking the edge of it. I'm gonna make sure it has no fill. Make sure it has a black stroke. And I'm not too worried about the size of it just yet. So, to resize it and rotate it, resizing, remember, is just grabbing this comma a bit here and just getting it down to size. Rotating it is that magical area around the outside. Now, what you might want to do is, now, when you're rotating, it just kind of goes around in random degrees. If you hold shift, remember that magical tool. Okay, hold down the shift key on your keyboard, and you start rotating it. Okay, you see it does it in 45-degree increments. You might want your nose to be that sort of shape. So, click either the center or the edge. Move it around. Get into position. Resize it. Rotate it around until you've got a nose. It doesn't have to be the same as my nose. I wanted mine to be flat on the bottom. So, I'm gonna try and rotate it using the magical rotation. Make sure it's big enough. Get it to overlap quite a bit in the back here. Okay, show you one in a second. Arrow keys just to have it down. Triangles overlapped a bit more. Why? Because I want to change the kind of roundness on the end. Okay. So, I'm gonna grab this little corner option. A little tug it in and drag it in. Make it a little bit bigger. Drag that corner inches and you can see that done it to all sides. You could do our secret trick. Remember, when you click on it once, and just do it individually. But it's a little bit easier just to hide these in here. We're gonna make both the nose black and his little body black. So, we wanna reuse this. I'm gonna have it selected. Okay. Hold my beak there. I'm gonna edit, copy, edit, paste. Okay. And I'm gonna put this down here. Missing about that. Looks like a good flipper to me. Copy and paste it again. I am going to rotate it around. I just used Command+C and Command+V on a Mac. You can use Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V on a PC. There we go. Now, you'll notice, I'm trying to line it up at the bottom here. It does some clever stuff where it tries to automatically to line up. If yours is not doing that, it's called Smart Guides. Go on View, and you can see my Smart Guides is turned on. It's got a check next to it. Okay. It just means it tries to align things up automatically for you. And it's super handy. It can also be a bit of a pain as well, so you can go to View and to uncheck it. If you're not sliding, like jumping around, lining up stuff. Some people don't. Alright. The last thing I'm gonna do is his body. Should have done that earlier. Okay. when we had the rectangle tool, and I grabbed the rectangle tool. I'm gonna hover. You can kind of see it says path. That just means I'm just going to start edge of his body here. Bang on the it's handy. It's one of those smart guides. Okay. I'm gonna say, click, hold, and drag. I've got my rectangle. Don't worry too much about the stroke around the outside. Remember black arrow. I'm gonna grab this. Click once. Drag him down to match. And some with this one. I'm going to click him and drop him up to match me. That's probably why it didn't do the little belly earlier, and I'm just adding more kind of things that could go wrong for us. So, I'm gonna try to line it up. Actually, I'm gonna bring it, yeah. Here you go. Perfect. That's why it didn't do it. So, we've got the body. Let's do the feet as well, so I'm gonna do the foot with the rectangle tool. Grab just that comma with my black arrow. I don't have to go with my black arrow. It's just a good habit to get into. Click on it once. Drag it down. What I'm gonna do is copy and paste them. So, Command plus C and Command plus V, two of them, I try to line them up. It's pretty good at lining. I'm not depending in which corner you grab it. So, notice that if I grab the center here, it intersects. Very good. Nice. He's got two little feet at the bottom. Alright. Let's look at the other drawing tools. We're gonna use just the regular old straight line. Okay. The line segment tool. It had some fancy word for just drawing a line. And all you do is click, hold, and drag. Okay. Click, hold, and drag. Those are too little. I'm not even sure what they are. Little feathers out the back of his head. But what I'd like to do as well is change the width of this. Okay. I'm gonna match. Maybe. This. Remember it was 4 points. I think. That we used for that. And we changed the capping. Okay. So, what I wanna do is do at the same time. So, what I'm gonna do is go to Edit Undo. It was kind of back to the same shape it was. So, like we did with the corner options, we can select more than one at a time, and it's that some key. So, I have my black arrow. I have the first one selected. Then I hold down Shift and click in the middle of the second one. So, I have both selected at the same time. Now over here in stroke I'm gonna say I'd like you to be 4 points. And under stroke I'd like to change from that one to that one. Alright, let's look at the last. Well, last kind of new thing that I want to show you. We'll draw the rectangles and stuff for the water and the weeds. And you know how to draw a polygon probably. Okay. Click hold. The rectangle tools. We saw it before. Polygon. And it remembers the last setting. So, the last time we used it was said be 3 sides. So, it's kind of defaulting to that now. So, what we're gonna do is, remember, just click once out here, put it back to what it was, which was 5 sides. Click OK, and we get our pentagon. I wanna lock in pentagon. OK, and I magically got the right size. If you don't remember, grab the edges here, hold down Shift while you're dragging those edges. It will lock the height and width. And just kind of move it in by grabbing the edges. Okay, here we go. If it's the wrong fill and the wrong stroke, with it selected you can go and change the fill to none. And the stroke there. Let's do our story. So, the story is there. Is an actual star tool. So, click and hold down this little kind of shape group. And grab the star tool, and if you click, hold and drag out, you'll get just a regular star. To adjust the star, you're gonna undo it. Click once. And you can decide on how many points it has, and how pointy they are. Just to mess around with the radiuses to experiment with it. It's hard to describe. But my ones find a way it was gonna leave everything by itself. I'm gonna cancel. and just draw the star. Now to lock it into a perfect kind of horizontal and vertical, hold Shift. Remember that magical tool. When in doubt, probably hold down Shift. Grab the black arrow, click, hold, and drag. Get it close, hold down Shift, grab on to the corners. Drag out. We're getting good at this. Alright. What I'd like to do is make sure it will try its very best to align those perfectly. Okay, if you're like, I know it's not aligned perfectly. So, what you can do is select both. Remember our trick. Have the star selected. Which key do you hold down? That's right. Shift key. Click the center of this pentagon. And what you'll see over the side here is that you've got your align option. So, I want to make sure they're aligned horizontally center and vertically center, and they are perfect already. I'm gonna move mine off, hold Shift grab, just to show you what it does. Now they are perfectly centered, so I'm just gonna mine way off, so it makes it more clear of what we're doing. Right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag it. I've got them both selected, and I'll hold down Shift key. I want them to be a lot smaller. So, space bar to move her along. Grab one of the edges. Hold down Shift to get it to a kind of, I don't know, sheriff badge size. Alright. The last couple of things we're gonna do is I'm gonna zoom out a little bit so I can put in. That is meant to be the ground, and that is meant to be the water. If you weren't sure, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm gonna click, hold, and drag. And I'm gonna get close to this edge. And it happens all the time, where your kind of just gets close to it. And Illustrator kind of you get lost this way. So, I've got this giant rectangle to get back. Okay. We can go to view, and just go to the one that says fit all in window. It kind of gets you back to home base. Command 0 on your keyboard. Okay. Own a Mac. Or Ctrl 0 on your keyboard is a common shortcut to do the same thing. Otherwise, let's go to view and go to one that says fit outward to window or fit all to window. Okay, we'll get back to here. I'm gonna delete with my keyboard. We'll go to undo to get rid of the giant rectangle. I'm gonna draw one that kind of goes just here. Another one. And I'm gonna draw in my circles. I'm gonna draw a circle. Zoom in a little bit. I'm gonna copy and paste it instead of drawing lots of them. And resize them. That's not even cheating, it takes just as long. Maybe even just easier drawing them. Holding Shift maybe to get a perfect circle. Yeah, okay, that first way is easier. Alright. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some color. Well, forgot the tuft of grass. I'm just gonna use me above the Act tool. There you go, Act tool, there's gonna be a bit of rotation going on, so maybe not. That do beautiful. Alright. We're gonna come back and look at strokes in a bit more detail to maybe give these a little bit more prettiness, but for the moment that's gonna do for me. Add some fill, what I'd like colors, because now you used to do is I don't know, weird shapes and sizes. So, I'm gonna fill work our way through. Adding fills, messing with strokes, resizing strokes, grouping, arranging, and we'll do all of that in the very next video. Alright, I'll see you then.